The Pantheon's history. The Pantheon was built by Marcus Agrippa in 27 BC in Campus Martius. Traditionally thought to have been designed as a temple for Roman gods, the structure's name is derived from Greek words pan, meaning all, and those meaning gods. Pantheon was destroyed in 80 AD, then rebuilt by Domitian and burned again in 110 AD. Constructed soon after the second fire of 110 AD and completed by Hadrian in 123 to 126 AD. Relatively early in its history, it was converted into the Church of St. Mary of the Martyrs in 608 CE. Site analysis. To the north of the building is the obelisk of Ramses II, and in front of the obelisk is the mausoleum of Augustus on the same axis. Another perpendicular axis extends on the northern axis and passes through the Trajan Column, the Colosseum, and the Lateran obelisk of Karnak. The axis continues through the Monte Grano burial, which closely resembles the Pantheon. Therefore, the Pantheon is considered to be a unifying component of the layout of Rome. Pantheon consists of 6 main elements. The first element is the projected entrance. It forms a transitional space that announces its function to be approached and provides overhead shelter. The second element is the portico. It projects from the main mass of the building to provide shelter, welcome, and announces the point of entry. The third element is the dome. It is an immense structure, roughly 32.980 meters tall. The dome can thus be described both as a series of piers connected by walls or as 2 concentric walls connected by transverse walls. The dome is what in modern terms we call a diaphragm structure. This structure is comparatively light and incredibly strong. A diaphragm is a structural element that transmits lateral loads to the vertical resisting elements of a structure, such as shear walls or frames. The diaphragm forces tend to be transferred to the vertical resisting elements primarily through in-plane shear stress. The fourth element is the dome. The diameter of the dome is 43.3 meters, as it remained the largest dome in the world for more than a millennium, and it is still the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome. The fifth element is the intersected arches. The structure of the Pantheon is composed of a series of intersecting arches. The arches rest on 8 piers, which support 8 rounded headed arches which run through the dome from its inner to its outer face. The arches correspond to the 8 bays of the floor level that house statues. The dome itself is supported by a series of arches that run horizontally round. The sixth element is the stepped rings. The rings are directing the force below, and the concrete of each step is reinforced with lead plate on each stepping. Each ring is stacked on top of each other. The end of the upper ring starts at the center of the ring below, allowing the weight to be uniformly distributed across the concrete and eventually down to the wall below. The diameter of the rings decreases as they are stacked. Concept. It is the fact that the distance between the rotunda to the end of the dome was equal to the diameter of the dome, which created a completely spherical space. The design of the Pantheon began with a square that was divided into a grid, and at certain points the circles intersect the grid, forming the floor plan of the building. The points of the intersection of the circle with the grid inside the square help the designer to create a circular space of straight lines. The curves are rendered in the same way as modern computers do with rectilinear perspective. If we take these circles and arrange them in quarters on top of each other, a very complex star shape appears. The intersections of the circle forms an 18-point star that divided the Pantheon into 18 quadrants. These intersections also made a 5-pointed star. This star gave us the overall dimensions of the Greek entrance. As for the section, it is the same as the plan, as it is derived from the intersection of the circle with the grid, as well as the rectangles, that which is a simple geometric form in section view by adding the same circles and stars, and we discovered that the intersection points carry the rectilinear shape together with curves by overlapping the circles at the top of the dome to find dimensions of the drum around the outside of the dome and the oculus. Dome's elements. As mentioned before, it remained the largest dome in the world for more than a millennium. It consists of, first, the oculus. The oculus or eye hole is 8.23 meters in diameter and made up of 1.37 meter thick ring of bricks. It is the only source of natural light in the interior. Throughout the day, the light from the oculus moved around this space in a sort of reverse sundial effect. Second, coffers. As there are 5 rows of coffers around the ceiling to reduce the weight of the dome. The dimensions of the coffers in the Pantheon range from about 2.1 to 2.7 meters to about 3.81 meters. It used to lighten the structural load and lighten the dome perceptually. The top row of coffers have 3 recesses, but the rest of the rows have 4 recesses. Materials. The material is used in the construction process of the building is mainly brick, and concrete was used to increase the adhesion of the bricks. This material is a mixture of mortar and small stones mixed with limestone, and it is known as travertine. The arches were constructed of stone and bricks, marble and granite. At the lowest level, travertine was used. Then, a mixture of it was used with tufa. Then, tufa with bricks. Then only bricks were used in the construction of the drum section of the dome. The dome was made of tufa diluted with scoria, a type of premise mixed with concrete. The weight of the dome has been further reduced in its interior design by means of more than 28 loops of coffers, whose height decreases as we go up to the top, where the center of the dome is. Load distribution. The arches take the huge forces coming from the stones above and redirect them to the side pillars, walls, and columns. Due to the enormity of the pillars and walls, a large horizontal force is generated that eliminates the horizontal kicking forces coming from the stones above. The domes maintain their shape through the balance that is created between the tensile and compression forces on the body of the dome itself. The vertical curved lines are called meridians, as these lines gather at the top of the dome, causing forces to compress the structure of the dome from the top, while from the bottom they have a desire to expand and extend, causing a strong tension from the bottom. At a certain level, the black horizontal line, there is an area that doesn't carry any tensile or compression forces. Tensile forces must be dealt with the dome to keep its shape. A group of circular rings, stabbed rings, have been placed around the base of the dome, made of concrete, aiming to increase the vertical forces with its huge weight, as it redirects the tensile forces downwards. and then moves to the supporting walls, as well as generating forces pressing on the body of the dome. So, strong tensile strength is generated on it. Influence buildings. This building shows us the genius power to form an architecture, as it is one of our most astonishing achievements. It's an engineering mark with a record-breaking roof. From 14th century to this day, the Pantheon remains a Catholic church. Throughout this time, it has been a constant source of inspiration. Renaissance engineer Filippo Brunelleschi spent 10 years in Rome studying the Pantheon to unlock its secrets. When he returned to Florence, he built the dome of Santa Maria del Fiore Cathedral. The dome has a diameter of 44.8 meters that exceeds the Pantheon's immense clear span. 100 years later, the iconic dome of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome was also inspired by the Pantheon. But the Pantheon traveled much further than Italy. The rotunda at the University of Virginia, built in 1822, was also inspired by the Pantheon. It is the focal point of the school. Jefferson is an architecture enthusiast, just like Hadrian. The Jefferson Memorial, built in 1940s, is an attribute to one of the founding fathers, as well as to his architectural designs. And right in the heart of Washington, D.C., the Pantheon is forever remembered in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, the ultimate symbol of democratic government in the world. So, Pantheon symbolizes a kind of architecture that has been used throughout the whole world to indicate public buildings that carry weight.